Maya had been staring at her computer screen for so long that her eyes burned. The office was almost empty now, just the hum of the air conditioning and the occasional buzz of the fluorescent lights keeping her company. She glanced at her watch. 8:30 in the evening. She really needed to finish this presentation before tomorrow's meeting. She stood up to stretch her legs and decided to make another cup of coffee. As she walked down the hallway, she noticed light coming from one of the offices across the hall. Someone else was working late, too. She'd seen him before, the guy who always wore navy blue shirts and carried a worn leather messenger bag. They worked for different companies that shared the building, so their paths rarely crossed except for those brief moments in the elevator or at the coffee shop on the ground floor. Maya filled her cup and was heading back when suddenly everything went dark. Not gradually, but all at once, like someone had flipped a switch on the entire world. She froze in the hallway, her heart jumping into her throat. The only light now came from the red emergency exit signs glowing eerily in the darkness. Then she heard footsteps. Another door opened, and she saw the faint glow of a phone flashlight. It was him, the navy shirt guy, looking just as confused as she felt. Before either of them could speak, the building's intercom crackled to life. The building manager's voice, usually so cheerful, now sounded stressed and apologetic. There was a massive storm outside. Power lines were down across several blocks. And here was the real problem. The building's electronic security system had automatically locked down. It was a safety feature, he explained, but it meant all the doors were sealed until morning when the maintenance team could manually override the system. Maya felt her stomach drop. Locked in? All night? She immediately reached for her phone. 12% battery? Great. Just great. The guy across the hall, now standing just a few feet away in the dim emergency lighting, held up his phone too. 8%, he said with a weak smile. I'm Daniel, by the way. I guess we're neighbors for the night. Maya, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady even though her mind was racing. She lived alone, and nobody was expecting her home. Her cat, Mr. Whiskers, would be fine until morning, but still. Being trapped in an office building during a storm wasn't exactly how she'd planned to spend her evening. Daniel seemed to read her thoughts. Look, there's a break room on the 7th floor with vending machines and windows. Better than standing in a dark hallway. We can wait it out there together. Maya nodded. What choice did she have? They carefully made their way to the stairs, using Daniel's phone light sparingly to preserve battery. The stairwell echoed with their footsteps, and Maya could hear the storm raging outside. Rain pounded against the building like it was trying to break through, and the wind howled in a way that made her shiver despite the warm air inside. The break room was small but comfortable enough. Large windows showed the storm in all its fury. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating sheets of rain so thick you couldn't see the street below. It looked like something from a disaster movie. Okay, Daniel said, trying to sound optimistic. Let's see what we're working with here. He opened the vending machine, which, thankfully, wasn't locked. Maya went back to her desk to grab some snacks she kept in her drawer. Between them, they had a handful of granola bars, some chips, mints, and 3 packets of instant coffee that would be useless without hot water. They settled into chairs by the window, and for a few minutes, neither spoke. The situation was just too strange. Maya kept thinking about all the things she should be doing at home, her comfortable bed, her Netflix queue. Instead, she was trapped with a complete stranger. But then Daniel broke the silence. So, I've seen you around for months, but I don't actually know what you do. Besides working insanely late hours, I mean. Maya laughed despite herself. Marketing consultant, presentations, strategies, basically convincing people to buy things they don't need. You? Software engineer. I write code that sometimes works and sometimes makes me question all my life choices. He grinned, and Maya noticed he had a nice smile. Genuine. The kind that reached his eyes. They started talking more, Small talk at first. The weather, obviously. How crazy the storm was. Whether the coffee shop downstairs would be open tomorrow. But as the minutes ticked by and the storm showed no signs of stopping, the conversation shifted. Maybe it was the darkness, or the strange intimacy of being the only two people in the entire building, but Maya found herself opening up in ways she usually didn't. She told him about her recent divorce, how she'd signed the papers 3 months ago and still sometimes forgot and set 2 plates at dinner. She talked about throwing herself into work because her apartment felt too quiet, too full of memories and empty spaces where her ex-husband's things used to be. Daniel listened without interrupting, without offering the usual empty platitudes people gave, and when he spoke, his voice was soft. I get it. Different situation, but I get it. I moved here 2 years ago after my mom passed away. Cancer. I just couldn't stay in my hometown anymore. Everything reminded me of her. The grocery store where we shopped together, the park where she taught me to ride a bike. I ran away, basically. Came here to start over. Maya looked at him with new eyes. Here was someone who understood loss, who knew what it meant to rebuild yourself from pieces. The storm continued its assault on the building, but inside that small break room, something unexpected was happening. 2 strangers were becoming something more. The hours slipped by in a way that felt both slow and fast at the same time. Maya checked her phone. It was just past midnight now. She'd been talking with Daniel for over 3 hours, and it felt like minutes. The storm outside hadn't let up at all. If anything, it seemed angrier, more determined to make its presence known. They'd moved from sitting in chairs to sitting on the floor, backs against the wall, sharing the bag of chips between them. Maya couldn't remember the last time she'd had a conversation like this. Not surface-level stuff, not small talk, real conversation. The kind where you actually listen instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. Daniel told her about his dad back in Taiwan, how they talked every Sunday without fail. His dad was getting older now, living alone in the house where Daniel grew up. I feel guilty sometimes, Daniel admitted, staring out at the storm. Like I abandoned him when he needed me most. But he keeps telling me to live my life, to be happy. Says my mom would want that. Maya felt a lump in her throat. I think parents always want their kids to be happy, even when it means being far away. What about you? Daniel asked. Family? Maya smiled. My parents retired to Florida last year, living their best life playing golf and complaining about tourists. I have a younger brother who's a teacher in Chicago. We text more than we call, but we're close. He was the one who helped me move out after the divorce. Didn't ask questions, just showed up with a truck and pizza. Sounds like a good brother. The best. Maya paused, then found herself saying something she'd never told anyone. You know what the weirdest part about divorce is? It's not the big stuff. It's the little things. Like, I still buy his favorite cereal sometimes by accident. Or I'll see something funny and reach for my phone to text him before I remember we don't do that anymore. It's like learning to live your life all over again, but slightly to the left of where you were before. Daniel nodded slowly. That's exactly how grief felt, like the whole world shifted 3 inches to the left, and I was the only one who noticed. Everything looked the same, but felt completely different. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and Maya realized this was rare, finding someone who understood, who didn't try to fix things or offer advice, who just got it. Can I tell you something embarrassing? Daniel asked suddenly, a shy smile playing at his lips. After the night we're having, I think we're past embarrassment. I noticed you months ago. Like really noticed you. You always get the same coffee order, a vanilla latte with extra foam, and you do this thing where you tap your fingers on the counter while you wait, like you're playing piano. I always thought you seemed interesting, but I figured you were probably married or dating someone. You just had this confident vibe, like someone who had their life together. Maya burst out laughing. Me? Have my life together? Daniel, I eat cereal for dinner at least 3 times a week. My apartment looks like a storage unit. And I've been wearing the same 3 work outfits in rotation for a month because I keep forgetting to pick up my dry cleaning. Okay, but you still seem like you have it together, Daniel insisted, laughing too. Way more than me anyway. I thought you were completely out of my league. Out of your league? I thought you were married. You're always smiling at your phone in the elevator. Married? I'm looking at pictures of my childhood dog. His name was Buddy, and I miss him every single day. They both laughed, and it felt good. Real good. The kind of laughter that comes from genuine connection, not forced politeness. Maya felt something shift in her chest, like a door opening that she'd kept locked for months. The wind rattled the windows, and they both instinctively moved closer together. Not planned, just natural. Their shoulders touched, and neither of them moved away. Maya could feel the warmth of him next to her, solid and real in a night that felt increasingly surreal. "Daniel?" she said softly. "Yeah? I'm really glad you were working late tonight." He turned to look at her, and in the dim emergency lighting, she could see his expression clearly. Open, honest, vulnerable in the way people rarely allow themselves to be. "Me too. I mean, not glad we're trapped, but glad I'm trapped with you. That sounds less weird in my head." Maya smiled. "No, I get it. I get exactly what you mean." The conversation continued, flowing easily from one topic to another. Daniel told her about his dream of creating an app that would actually help people, something meaningful instead of just another time waster. Maya shared her secret, the one she'd never told anyone at work. She'd been writing a novel for 5 years. Not a good novel, probably, but it was hers, and someday she wanted to finish it. "What's it about?" Daniel asked, genuinely interested. "A woman who rebuilds her life after everything falls apart. I started it before the divorce, which is weird. Like I was preparing myself for something I didn't know was coming. Art is like that sometimes. We write what we need to hear." As they talked, Maya noticed Daniel's hand resting on the floor between them. Without thinking too much about it, without letting fear stop her, she moved her hand closer. Just a little. Just enough that their fingers were almost touching. Daniel noticed. She could tell by the way his breathing changed slightly, but he didn't move away. Instead, very slowly, he turned his hand palm up. An invitation. A question. Maya's heart was beating so loudly she was sure he could hear it. This was crazy, wasn't it? They'd known each other for just a few hours, but somehow it didn't feel crazy. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. She placed her hand in his, and his fingers gently closed around hers. The touch was electric, sending warmth up her arm and straight to her chest. They sat like that, hands intertwined, watching the storm and not saying anything. Because sometimes words aren't necessary. Around 2 in the morning, the exhaustion started to set in, but neither Maya nor Daniel wanted to sleep. It felt like sleeping would break whatever spell had been cast over this strange night. Like if they closed their eyes, they might wake up and discover this had all been a dream. They'd moved to the small couch in the break room, still holding hands like teenagers. Maya had kicked off her uncomfortable work heels, and Daniel had rolled up his sleeves. The storm continued its symphony outside, but inside, they'd created their own small world. "Tell me something nobody knows about you," Maya said, tucking her feet under her. Daniel thought for a moment. "I play piano. Well, I used to. Haven't touched one in 2 years. My mom taught me when I was 6, and we used to play duets together. After she died, I couldn't anymore. It hurt too much. Every song reminded me of her. That's beautiful, though. The memory, I mean. Maybe someday you'll be able to play again, when it hurts less." "Maybe. What about you? Secret talent?" Maya grinned. "I volunteer at an animal shelter every Saturday. Have been for 3 years. Nobody at work knows because I keep my personal life separate. But honestly, those few hours with the dogs and cats are the best part of my week. They don't care about presentations or deadlines or whether you're successful. They just want someone to pet them and tell them they're good. That's really sweet. Are you going to get Mr. Whiskers a friend? Mr. Whiskers barely tolerates me. I think another cat would push him over the edge. They both laughed. But seriously, there's this dog at the shelter. Her name is Rosie, and she's been there for 8 months. She's older, kind of shy, and everyone wants puppies, so nobody adopts her. I keep thinking about bringing her home. Why don't you? Maya was quiet for a moment. Honestly? Because that would mean I'm really starting over, like officially building a new life instead of just existing in the ruins of my old one. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Starting over is scary. It means accepting that the before is really gone. They fell into another comfortable silence, and Maya found herself studying Daniel's profile. He had a strong jawline, and there were small lines around his eyes from smiling. He looked tired but content, despite being trapped in an office building in the middle of a storm. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said, turning to face her. "Anything. What made you stay so late tonight? I mean, beyond work. You could have finished that presentation tomorrow?" Maya took a deep breath. Honestly, because going home to an empty apartment is hard sometimes. Work gives me a reason to delay it. At least here, I'm busy. I'm productive. At home, I just exist. And existing alone is harder than I thought it would be. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. I do the same thing. I take the long way home. Stop at the grocery store even when I don't need anything. Walk around the block a few times. Anything to avoid that moment when I open the door and remember I'm the only one there. Is it weird that I find that comforting? Knowing I'm not the only one who feels like that? Not weird at all. We're all just trying to figure it out, you know. Life. How to be okay with being alone while also hoping we won't always be. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Not sad tears exactly. Just tears from being seen. Really, truly seen by another person. When was the last time that happened? Her ex-husband had looked at her every day but stopped seeing her years before they finally admitted it was over. Hey, Daniel said softly, reaching up to gently wipe away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. You okay? Yeah, Maya said, and she meant it. Actually, I'm better than okay. This might be the weirdest night of my life, but it's also kind of perfect in a strange way. Daniel's hand lingered near her face, and Maya's breath caught. The air between them felt charged, full of possibility and questions. She could see him thinking, weighing whether to cross this invisible line they'd been dancing around for hours. Maya, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I really want to kiss you right now, but I also don't want to mess this up, whatever this is. Her heart was racing. Every logical part of her brain was screaming that this was too fast, too soon, too everything. They'd just met. She was still healing from a divorce. This was crazy. But there was another voice, quieter but stronger, that said this was exactly right. That sometimes life gives you unexpected moments, and the only real mistake is letting them pass by. Daniel, she said, matching his whisper, stop overthinking it. He smiled, that genuine smile that had captivated her earlier. You sound very sure. I'm not sure about anything right now except that I don't want this night to end without knowing what it feels like to kiss you. That was all the permission he needed. Daniel leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind. But Maya didn't change her mind. She met him halfway, and when their lips touched, it felt like coming home and going on an adventure at the same time. The kiss was soft at first, tentative and questioning, but then Maya's hand came up to cup his face, and Daniel's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, and Maya felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. This wasn't just physical attraction. This was connection, recognition. Two lonely people finding each other in the middle of a storm. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing heavily, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. "Wow," he said simply. "Yeah," Maya agreed. "Wow." They kissed again and again, each kiss feeling more natural than the last. Between kisses, they talked, laughed, shared more pieces of themselves. Daniel told her about his first job, writing code for a video game that nobody ever played. Maya told him about the time she accidentally sent a presentation meant for a pet food company to a law firm instead, and how she'd panic-cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, Maya and Daniel found themselves lying on the couch together, her head resting on his chest, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. The storm was still raging outside, but it felt distant now, like it belonged to another world. "This is crazy, right?" Maya said, listening to the steady rhythm of Daniel's heartbeat. "Completely insane," Daniel agreed, "but also the best thing that's happened to me in 2 years." Maya tilted her head to look up at him. "Really?" "Really. I came to this city to run away from grief, but I just ended up being lonely instead. Tonight, for the first time since I moved here, I don't feel lonely. I feel like I found something I didn't even know I was looking for." Maya's chest tightened with emotion. "I know exactly what you mean. I thought I needed time alone to heal, to figure out who I was without being someone's wife. But maybe what I actually needed was to find someone who sees me for who I really am, not who I used to be or who I'm supposed to be. Just me." Daniel pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "I see you, Maya, and I really like what I see." They were quiet for a while, just holding each other and listening to the storm. Maya's mind was racing despite her exhaustion. What happened after tonight? Would this feeling survive in the daylight? Or was this just a beautiful moment, perfect, because it was temporary and impossible? As if reading her thoughts, Daniel spoke. "What are you thinking about?" "Tomorrow," Maya admitted. "What happens when morning comes and we're not trapped anymore? When we go back to our regular lives and our separate offices and all of this becomes just a story we tell." Daniel shifted so he could look at her properly. "Does it have to be just a story? I mean, I know this started in the most unusual way possible, but that doesn't mean it has to end when the sun comes up. You really want to see me again? Like on purpose? Not because we're locked in a building together?" He laughed. "Yes, Maya, on purpose, with planning and everything. Maybe even at a place with working electricity. What if it's different in the real world? What if this whole night only worked because of the circumstances?" Daniel was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Then we find out. Together. Look, I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers. I don't know if this is going to turn into something or if we'll go on one date and realize we have nothing in common once we're not trapped. But I do know that I don't want to let you walk away tomorrow without at least trying." Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. This was real. He was real. And maybe, just maybe, this could be something beautiful. "Okay," she said. "Let's try." "Yeah? Yeah, but I have conditions." Daniel raised an eyebrow, amused. "Conditions?" "First, we have to promise to be honest with each other. No games, no pretending. If this isn't working, we say so. If we're scared, we say so. Deal?" "Deal. What else?" "Second, we take this slow. Tonight has been amazing, but we literally just met. I don't want to rush into something and ruin it because we moved too fast." Daniel nodded seriously. "That's fair. I can do slow, even though slow is going to be torture after tonight." Maya laughed. "And third, you have to let me meet this famous childhood dog in pictures. I need to know if he's as cute as you say." "Buddy was the cutest dog in existence, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise." They sealed the deal with another kiss, this one sweet and full of promise. Maya couldn't believe this was happening. Just 12 hours ago, she'd been alone in her office, dreading another evening in her empty apartment. Now she was lying in Daniel's arms, feeling hopeful about the future for the first time in months. "Tell me about your novel," Daniel said suddenly. "The one you've been writing for 5 years. You really want to know? I really want to know everything about you." So Maya told him about her main character, a woman named Claire who loses everything and has to rebuild from scratch, about how writing helped her process her own feelings when she couldn't talk about them, about how she'd written and deleted the same chapter 15 times because she couldn't figure out how Claire finds hope again. "Maybe Claire finds hope in an unexpected place," Daniel suggested. "Maybe she's not looking for it and it just shows up one day during a storm." Maya smiled against his chest. "Are you saying life imitates art?" "I'm saying sometimes the universe has better ideas than we do." They talked until their voices grew hoarse, about dreams and fears and silly things like favorite movies and whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Daniel was firmly against it, Maya was firmly for it, and they agreed to disagree, which Maya thought was a good sign. Not agreeing on everything, just respecting the disagreement. As the night wore on, exhaustion finally caught up with them. Maya's eyes grew heavy, and she felt Daniel's breathing slow and deepen. She tried to fight sleep, not wanting to miss a single moment of this unexpected gift of a night. But eventually, wrapped in warmth and safety, she drifted off. Her last conscious thought was that sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them. When you're not looking, not planning, not trying to control every variable. Sometimes you just have to get trapped in a building during a storm and talk to a stranger until they're not a stranger anymore. Maya woke to the harsh beep of the building's systems coming back online. For a moment, she was completely disoriented. Where was she? Why was she on a couch? And why did her neck hurt so much? Then she felt the arm around her and remembered everything. She lifted her head and saw Daniel blinking awake, his hair sticking up in different directions. Morning light filtered through the windows, gray and soft. The storm had passed. They looked at each other, and Maya saw her own mix of emotions reflected in his eyes. Wonder, uncertainty, hope, fear. The magic of the night felt fragile in the daylight, like it might shatter if they moved too quickly. The building manager's voice crackled over the intercom, apologizing for the inconvenience and announcing that all doors were now unlocked. People could leave. The spell was broken. "Hi," Daniel said, his voice rough from sleep. "Hi," Maya replied. Reality was crashing in fast. She probably looked terrible. Her makeup was definitely smudged. Her hair was a mess, and she had to get home, shower, change, and somehow make it to her meeting by 9. They sat up slowly, both stiff from sleeping on the uncomfortable couch. The break room looked different in the daylight. Less romantic, more like what it was, a generic office space with boring furniture and fluorescent lights. Maya started gathering her things, suddenly shy. "What did you say after a night like that? How did you transition from the intimacy they'd shared to just being two people who had to go to work?" Daniel seemed to be having the same struggle. He kept opening his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closing it again. Finally, he just blurted out, "Do you want to get coffee sometime? Real coffee, from a coffee shop with electricity and everything?" Maya laughed, relieved. "I'd like that. But maybe not coffee. How about dinner? I think we already covered the staying up all night talking part." "Dinner sounds perfect." They exchanged phone numbers, typing them carefully into their phones with hands that weren't quite steady. This was real. They were making plans. This wasn't just going to be a story they told about a crazy night. It was going to be something more. Daniel walked Maya to the parking garage. The storm had left everything washed clean and gleaming. Puddles reflected the morning sky, and the air smelled fresh and new, like the world had been given a second chance. At her car, they stood facing each other, suddenly awkward. Do you hug, kiss, shake hands? Everything that had felt so natural in the darkness of the break room now felt complicated in the light of day. "So," Daniel said, shoving his hands in his pockets. "So," Maya echoed. "I'll call you? Later today? Or is that too soon?" "Later today is perfect. After my meeting. Around lunch?" "It's a date. I mean, not a date, just a phone call. The actual date comes later. I'm going to stop talking now." Maya grinned. This awkward, nervous side of him was adorable. "Daniel?" "Yeah?" "Last night was one of the best nights of my life." His face transformed, that genuine smile breaking through. "Mine too. Even being trapped. Especially being trapped, actually." Maya surprised herself by stepping forward and hugging him. He wrapped his arms around her immediately, and for a moment, they just stood there in the parking garage, holding each other like they were the only two people in the world. "Go ace your meeting," Daniel said when they pulled apart. "Go write brilliant code." Maya got in her car and watched Daniel walk to his. He turned back once and waved, and she waved back. As she drove home, she couldn't stop smiling. Her phone buzzed with a text. It was Daniel. "Already miss you. Is that weird after one night?" She texted back while stopped at a red light. "Not weird. I miss you too." Over the next few weeks, they did take it slow. They went on actual dates, to restaurants with lights and other people. They learned about each other in normal circumstances, without the intensity of being trapped. And you know what? It was just as good, maybe even better because it was real and lasting. Maya did adopt Rosie from the shelter. Daniel came with her, and Rosie took to him immediately. Mr. Whiskers was less impressed, but he adjusted. They all did. Daniel started playing piano again. Slowly at first, just simple songs. But gradually, the joy came back. He played for Maya, and sometimes she'd sit and write her novel while he practiced. They existed together in comfortable silence, the kind only possible between people who truly know each other. 3 months after that night, Maya's sister asked her how she met Daniel. Maya told her about the storm, about being trapped, about talking all night. Her sister laughed and said it sounded like something from a movie. But it wasn't a movie. It was real life. Messy, complicated, beautiful real life. A year later, Daniel finished developing an app to help elderly people stay connected with their families overseas. He dedicated it to his mother and called his dad to tell him about it. His dad cried, and Daniel cried, and healing happened. Maya finished her novel. It wasn't perfect, but it was done. She sent it to agents, got rejected a bunch, but kept trying. Because that's what you do when you find hope again. You keep trying. And they kept trying together, building something real from that unexpected night when the power went out and their walls came down. They had fights sometimes, because real relationships do. They had doubts and fears and bad days. But they also had honesty and laughter and a foundation built on seeing each other truly. Because that's what that night had really been about, not just attraction or circumstance. It was about two people brave enough to be vulnerable, to share their real selves without filters or pretense. And that kind of connection doesn't happen every day. Sometimes being trapped is the most freeing thing that can happen to you. It strips away all the excuses, all the fears, all the walls you build to protect yourself. And if you're very lucky, on the other side of those walls, you find someone worth keeping. The storm had brought them together, but they chose to stay together. And that choice, made every single day, was what turned one extraordinary night into an extraordinary life.